Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking into our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. Big episode here today. One of the most fascinating guests that we've had on ever here at TDR. He's been on a few times over the last couple of nights. Big Mike from Advanced Nutrients is going to be joining us in just a moment to talk about a lot of things. Talk about the company, talk about how yields are going to be extremely important from a business fundamental for a lot of MSOs and LPs across North America. As well, we're going to dive into some reform information and why he believes the route to take to basically get this narrative pushing forward is latching on to big ag when it comes to these cannabis packs, and why we shouldn't be actually doing this solely. We need to latch on to big ag, crypto, and others. And how do we do that? We're about to find out as we welcome in AV here in our latest interview. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a busy week so far.
I would say the feedback that we've got over the last 45 days when we brought on Big Mike originally was nothing short of very positive. He's been involved in this space for over 40 plus years, but fascinating guest, probably one of the most interesting personalities that we've ever had on.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's been involved in the industry for I think 40 years. I think he said Advanced Nutrients for 26 last time we spoke with him, and I mean he's seen some shit to be completely blunt. I would love to have had or been a fly on the wall for that 40 years of seeing the industry mature. I mean, the 10 that I've been involved with it, obviously it's been very formal.
Yeah.
And we've seen it really grow. But I mean, seeing this industry in its infancy and what it actually took from a grassroots movement to a multi-billion-dollar industry was definitely something that I would have liked to watch and see take shape with a firsthand account.
I think that's
like his.
That's what makes the story and the personality interesting. So let's be that fly on the wall and bring him back in. Big Mike from Advanced Nutrients. Good to see you, sir.
Hello, Anthony. Glad to be on the show this morning.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. And I know before we got filming here, we touched on a lot of things. And, we're going to get into some of this reform. Interesting to see how this hearing will happen next week and whether or not cannabis gets brought up during this Senate Banking Committee hearing. But outside of that, I wanted, because we've talked about a lot of things regarding the industry and trends to look forward to, but I also wanted to talk about business fundamentals. And I know that last couple of times we've had you on, we've highlighted the fact that adult use did not pass in Florida. Still up in the air as to what's going on in Pennsylvania. We're starting to see some encouraging numbers out of New York, but for the most part, the common trend we're seeing is cannabis revenue is relatively flat across the board. So that's going to be a big question mark as to how a lot of companies tackle this issue, which brings obviously to yield. So I know this is stuff that you talk about, and I know this is stuff that you specialize in, but on that note, is that a lot of the dialogue that you're hearing right now as to what are some of the most important, obviously, objectives that a lot of these companies need to focus on here in 2025?
What I see is a lot of the big MSOs, they're just concerned about price, and they're not concerned about quality. And I don't care what category you're in any business, there's good, better, and best. And Advanced Nutrients has always been about getting that top 30% who want to grow the best cannabis in the world. And look, one guy's won 115 cups using Advanced Nutrients. There's a market for quality, and that's the market that we're going after. And no one does it better than Advanced Nutrients because we've got the science behind us.
40 plus years in the industry, as we've said in the past. But when you look at 26 years when you started this company, why did you start the company? What is the mission statement as to how you've grown and evolved? Because let's face it, a year or 2 years in this space, it changes drastically, does it not?
Yeah. Well, our goal is to, elevate cannabis cultivation through education and best-in-class products. It's that simple. We've been doing this for a long, long time. And the reason why we did it is there was no nutrients specifically made for cannabis. And what we found out is cannabis, we started doing a lot of tissue samples with UBC University and working with BCIT up in Canada. What was that? That's 25 years ago, 26 years ago. And we took leaf tissue samples from every week that plant grew, from roots, stalks, stems, buds, leaves, and we did multiple strains, and we were able to create a window and of what most strains would fit into. There's a few outliers, but we realized that with just fertilizer alone, it only took the plant to a certain level of quality.
Okay.
And so then I said, okay, like, what do we got to do? How do we got to figure this out? So there's this group called the Plant Growth Regulation Society of America. Now, who are these guys and gals?
Right.
Well, they are the top scientists from top ag out of universities and every company you could think of. And I crashed it. I made a little tag, looked like theirs. On the first day, I mean, they're taking notes like crazy about all the different pathways and hormones. Arabidopsis is mostly what they study, but
Yeah.
a lot of it, some of that stuff applies to cannabis. And I don't know, the second day, some guy comes up to me and he goes, "We haven't seen you here before. Who are you?"
Really?
And I said, okay. I'm busted now. I'll just tell him the truth. I said, hey, my name is Michael Straumietis. My friends call me Big Mike.
Yeah.
Call me that. I'm in the cannabis space and I want to learn how to grow plants better. He put his hand out and shook it. Goes, welcome to our team, and we're glad to have you here. We just look at cannabis as another plant. They actually let me put posters up and all kinds of stuff through the years. I was the only non-PhD there taking notes, and I found out who the two smartest guys in the room were, and I started talking to them and talking to other people. And they had stuff that was on the bleeding edge of how to manipulate plants and get them to grow. And they gave me a book. And in this book was a green book. It had every substance you could possibly imagine knowing.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll try this one. I'll try this one. And so thousands of tests came out of that. And the scientists themselves had their own stuff that was even further out bleeding edge. And 3 of those scientists' products are in our 7th generation platform to this day. They worked so well and gave us an edge. Science has always revealed the truth to us and told us just reams and reams of data about that plant and what it does. And so if you want to get the most out of the plant, you have to come in with biostimulants and biologicals, not just salts. Salts will not do it. And then I see a lot of these guys are mixing their own salts. And I always tell the Dr. El Saholi story from University of Mississippi. In 2003, he contacted. He goes, hey, I hear you guys got products for cannabis. I said, yeah. He goes, send me some. Okay, sure. Send it to him. All of a sudden, I get a letter back from him. He goes, we tested your stuff, and we found that you raised, and here's we actually, I have the paper. I post it every once in a while.
Yeah.
We raised the THC by 42%, CBD by 55%. Okay. CBG was down to 0, which is good because that's the grandfather cannabinoid that makes the other ones, and totally used up all the CBG and had a great profile. And we increased biomass by 21% and seed production by 29%. Now here's the story.
Is this all from learning from this book that you were able to obtain, or
no? This is just from knowledge because there was no internet. Like when we started in 1997, the internet was just starting. But the thing about Dr. El Saholi is he had a team of his top agronomists come up with a formula for corn. For it was mostly they studied corn and other crops and soybeans and wheat. And they came up with a recipe, what they thought was the recipe for hemp and a cannabis. And we gave him our stuff and blew it out of the water. And to this day, he still uses our products. And one day I got a phone call from him. He goes, hey, can you come down here and show us how to make buds that look like the cover of High Times? So we said, absolutely, Dr. El Saholi, be glad to do that. And we came down. So the story is, sure, you can have agronomists on staff and you can have really smart people. There's a steep learning curve to understanding what cannabis wants. Now, there's a lot of science papers that are out that will help people go in the right direction. But I can tell you, we have a case study right now with an agronomist who is mixing his own and now just uses our cultivator series because it's just gives better results.
So we hear a lot from we hear a lot from the opposition that, let's say, the product that you see in the market today in the traditional cannabis industry is not your grandfather's cannabis in terms of potency, in terms of look. Is that a byproduct of, let's say, what they claim with the industry wanting to just create stronger products? Or are we finally getting the most potential out of the plant due to the technology and time that's been given and focus that's been given to getting the most out of it naturally?
That's exactly it. It's not just potency goes up and all that, but so does yield. Obviously, when you have a higher resin production, you're going to have a higher weight. And so yields are going up. Guys are growing the candy strains using advanced nutrients are getting 3.2 pounds per light. LED, HPS, they're getting a little bit less. But it's it works great, and we can dial in. We have a suite of products. People go, "Oh, you got so many products. You don't have to use them all. They're there for specific reasons, and we can dial in any strain." And
for those that,
whatever that strain can produce, it will produce the highest quality cannabis and yield. And by the way, there is a cross point where we can grow plants and get 4.5 pounds a light. There's one guy, advanced student, is getting 5 pounds. Quality goes down. There is an intersection between quality and yield.
And then talking about
that sweet spot is where you got to get it right. And for candy strains like gelato, it's cherry gelato. It's about 3.2 the guys are getting.
And then talking about the strains and the actual products, are there certain, for those that don't know from an educational perspective, are there specific products from a nutrient perspective that work with specific strains? Or is it the products, let's say the advanced nutrients lines, you're using one product that's, let's say, strain agnostic. This is just what the plant wants from like a nutrient and a fertigation perspective.
Most of the time we can manipulate all the different pathways, and what it comes down to then environment and the cultivators that you have working. It's not just the magic is all in the nutrients. It's genetics number one, environment number two, and then comes in the fertilizer and the ability to manipulate every stage of that plant's development when it's growing. And that's what we do better than anyone else.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to, continue on, because I was going to ask, I'll wrap it up at the end of this topic, but anyways, finish your thought.
I was going to say, do you see any point in the future from, let's say, like a genetically modified perspective or something to where cannabis is able to be grown at the quality it's grown outdoors?
Yeah.
Through science?
Yeah. So here's the truth. The truth is the reason indoor cannabis looks like indoor cannabis is because it's been bred that way to have less leaf over the years. There will be a time where you can grow cannabis outdoors, do a gene edit, and it will look exactly like indoor.
Okay.
And what kind of environment?
That'll be an interesting inflection point for the industry.
It's coming. It's coming faster than we could imagine.
But what kind of environment?
I'll say compared to other crops, we're at the tip of the iceberg with cannabis, where we know genetically what to do with it and where to make all the cuts. It's not like corn, soybean, cotton. It's already
But when you talk about outdoor, are you referring to like California and the Golden Triangle, or is this pretty much anywhere is where you're thinking?
Anywhere. You could dial it in for anyone. There's combined rooms, and you can dial in any latitude, longitude in the world and replicate the environment 24 hours like what it was yesterday or what it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Right. So you're talking more about quality versus quantity. Maybe explain, I don't know how much you can share, but basically the research and the development process behind what you do to give, like if I'm a grower from a specific company that's watching this right now, like what can you shed some light on as to like what's the actual research behind a lot of this stuff to create the better yields is what you allude to?
All science. Like a lot of these companies come in and they think that you can just throw ag fertilizer at cannabis, which you can do. It will grow, but you're not going to get an optimum crop, and you're not going to get top dollar for it. Anywhere near top dollar for it. And so it's always been science. So after we were growing in Canada, we got a license out of the country of Bulgaria to actually do R&D to cannabis. So now we had PhDs and undergrads and all kinds of people doing all kinds of studies, unlocking the secrets of cannabis and how to manipulate that plant to get what we want out of it.
How much emphasis in the industry are you seeing dedicated towards research and development as it relates to cultivation, as it relates to fertigation, as it relates to genetics? Is there enough emphasis and resources being allocated towards those disciplines, or is it kind of a very fringe thing? And most companies are just focused on let's grow it and sell it and get it out the door.
If you want to know about that, there's a group called CanMed. Every single company should be sending their top representatives to CanMed every year. This year, it's in Puerto Rico. Why CanMed? Because we sponsored it. We sponsored heavily. Why? Science. These are the smartest guys in the world when it comes to cannabis. The guys who are on the bleeding edge. Raphael Meshulam used to go before he passed away. He would go to CanMed. And so there's this great brain trust that comes in every year. And we learned so much. We made two licensing deals with universities in regards to gene editing that put us 5-7 years ahead of everybody. We had one piece of the puzzle. One university had another piece of the puzzle, and another university did another piece of the puzzle, and those deals are being wrapped up right now. What's so special about it is once you do a gene edit, it's then called a construct, and that construct has to be replicated. Most people are getting a 1 to 3% replication rate on the constructs. We're getting 93. So that's huge. That's huge.
Now, on those constructs and on those gene edits, and let's say these partnerships that you're doing, are there patents and IP that can be derived from that? Or is it kind of like these innovations that are being discovered? It's more so, I don't want to call it a public-private partnership, but it's less defensible since you're actually engaging with the university to do the research.
Yes, and so the universities will have the IP, and some of that is our IP, and together we're able to make this happen. And we've got the one sector wants the hemp. We wanted the cannabis sector with the THC sector, and so that's where we're concentrating our efforts on.
Your level of sophistication is obviously a lot more above than what you're seeing on average. Like, we saw a big trend in this industry where a lot of CEOs that didn't have a cannabis background were appointed to a lot of these large MSOs. Now you're starting to see a lot of these CEOs shift out, and now they're appointing people with a cannabis background back into it because they realize, again, it's quality versus quantity and we need yields. Are you starting to see more companies, as they make these management executive changes, now put more of an emphasis and focus on what you're trying to obviously achieve?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Look, there's this clash of cultures happening. And I think that a lot of the guys in our industry have evolved and figured out, just to call it, done their work. And there's another group that hasn't. And the guys who are more self-aware, like the guys that are acting, they're all self-aware. And those are the guys that can work with the street, so to speak, the suits, and make things happen. The two need each other. We need each other, and we need the right people who, when you give them some feedback, they don't look at that like you're criticizing them and take it personally. A lot of the folks that have come out of our industry have had traumatic childhoods one way or another to different degrees, and that has made people to have difficult personalities. Like, they don't understand the difference between internal locus of control and external locus of control. Internal locus of control is where you take full responsibility for every decision you made, bad, good, and even the bad decisions. What part did you play in it? Because you did. And so what do you have to do as a human being to make yourself better and to move yourself forward? Because the great thing about this beautiful life that we have is we get to create our own reality. That's what people don't realize. The only thing that gets in the way of anything is ourselves. Think about that. It's ourselves. 100%. And so a lot of our guys, we put them through training now, where there's a course made by Chris Collins, where he actually goes in. It's a leadership course. It's not like no leadership course you've ever done. It's about rewiring the brain and pointing out things to themselves that they weren't aware of, where their blind spots were. And there's a common group of blind spots that people have that they're not aware of. And so we teach them internal locus of control versus external locus of control, where you're blaming everything and you're not looking at yourself and thinking, what could I have done to make this situation better? So,
well,
psychology.
You see things from a big picture perspective. And I think that's what makes you, I would say, successful as an entrepreneur. Stick to one thing for a long period of time. You're going to get good at it. So if I'm a grower and I'm watching this, like, what is the mission statement that you want to say as to how you can help these specific companies?
The mission statement, we're going to elevate your grow operation. And another thing that I see a lot of folks aren't doing that they should be doing, and it works out really great, and that's a bonus structure for the growers. So whatever your largest yield was and your highest terps and cannabinoids, or whatever it is, make a bonus plan that goes beyond that and watch what happens. these guys will work their tails off to get that extra. And so we're usually like 10% over X amount here, you're going to get that as a bonus. That seems to work. Every place that's been implemented, it has worked really, really well. Think about it. These growers have your profitability in their hands every single day. They make a mistake. They they get pissed off at you, and they do a big dry back or whatever. They've just cost you 25% in your yield. So treat the cultivators with respect. By the way, this is a big deal. If you disrespect a traditional grower, it's not gonna go well. You want to treat everybody with respect at all times, and the information that they're giving you is valuable. That's all.
I'd like to. What do you like? I understand what you're saying, but are there like when you say you need to keep these cultivators, as you said, these growers happy? Like explain kind of like what
You
their
don't have to keep them happy, but you got to treat them right and treat them fairly and treat them with respect and put them in a bonus plan. Watch what happens. The whole paradigm changes overnight.
How would you best describe their personalities? The average them.
Hyper independent. They don't take criticism well, and they have a strong external locus of control.
I would think.
So we talk about innovation, and I mean, we talk about agriculture a lot. One thing that we've probably never brought up on the show, or one question I've never asked any executives, is the ag industry is massive in the United States. Cannabis is going to be much, much bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
Do you ever see, and a lot of people probably will not agree with this, but do you ever see Bayer, Cargill, Monsanto coming into the industry from an innovation and like a genetics perspective and really looking at it 100%. And taking it? Okay.
Yeah. Why? Because Bayer put up the funding for GW Pharmaceutical like 30 years ago, and it was in billions of dollars. Now I've talked to them, and nutrition wasn't their focus. It was cannabinoid and terpene research.
So big ag is a wild card here in this space as far as expanding.
It's big ag, and everybody's thinking, by the way, that it's pharma and it's all these other nefarious players, and it's a little bit of everything. But what about agriculture itself? What about the Cotton Farmers Association, the Wheat Farmers Association, the Corn Association? Now all of a sudden, farmers are going to want to grow hemp. I had one farmer come to me out of the San Joaquin Valley. He goes, I got 400,000 acres of hemp I'm ready to plant right now. I said, okay, we got some issues. Seeds, number one. The amount of seeds in the country for what you want to do. And then what about post-harvest production? What are you going to do there? The equipment's not there. And he had bought in all these buildings and old cotton buildings and said, we'll squeeze the water out of them, we'll do this. I said, no, that's not how it's going to work. But there's a lot of farmers all across America who want to grow hemp. Well, that's going to infringe on a lot of other associations as well. But what I see that the cannabis industry, we now have a PAC. It's coming together. This is a beautiful thing. Now, what other PACs are going to work with us? First PAC I would get is be banging on every crypto PAC and getting them behind us and working with them in unison. Because if we can ride on the back of crypto, especially when it comes to because the banking's a big issue with crypto, we have something in common. And so let's work with the crypto, get on and start making the phone calls and introductions and getting to know them. And I think things will move along a lot faster than trying to go it along. Again,
Yeah, we need dance partners.
Groups go further than the single person always.
Yeah. Anthony, we've touched on that, right? The standalone days of safe to get past, I think, could be over. But
we haven't gotten anywhere ourselves. We're still where we started. We are in the starting blocks 8 years ago at this point. We've gotten an HHS report. That was fantastic. It's a smoking gun to drive reform change. But again, we are now stuck in the wheels of administrative processes.
Yeah.
Safe banking hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
I do believe in the notion that we need to either align ourselves with crypto, agriculture, the NRA. One of these major lobbies that has staying power, has influence with the key politicians that are on these committees that we're going to have to go testify in front of and or get stuff through, and use them and leverage them to further our cause. The alcohol lobby and the agriculture lobby are probably low-hanging fruit. We're taking market share from alcohol. Alcohol needs a friend and they need to figure out a new business model. The tobacco lobby, I mean, I'm just speaking freely here, but I mean, these just seem like logical
Yeah.
steps.
Well, let's talk about the tobacco lobby. A lot of those tobacco fields they want to put hemp into them.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
genius. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Get a big coalition of PACs together. We help them, they help us. That's just the way
Yeah.
politics
Yeah.
is, and patience, and don't stop. Keep the constant pressure on the best way you can, and a lot of trips to Washington. I've done a lot of work here in California, made a lot of trips to Sacramento. And my next phase will start making trips to Washington. But you got to put in the reps, you got to put in the time, you got to go to those dinners, you got to talk to them face to face.
Yes.
You'll get these intimate dinners where there's 5, 6, 12 of you, and you all get a chance to talk to the U.S. senator or whoever's there.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I was
think
talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody yesterday who actually said, and a lot of people might not want to hear this either. The first step in the right direction for the cannabis industry is to settle our differences with the hemp industry and come together with a unified voice,
Yes.
because the plant
Yeah.
is the exact same thing. THC is THC, whether it comes from hemp or whether it comes from cannabis,
Yeah.
and the infighting is not doing us any favors.
Correct. And I see a lot of the MSOs, some of them are moving over to the hemp side now
they are.
too,
Yeah.
because they see the advantages of it. But they absolutely must come together.
Yeah.
And,
Big
and
Mike, based on a lot of the relationships from the political front that you've developed in California and are starting to segue that into Washington, like when you and Anthony talk about the right approach and latching on to an NRA or big ag, this seems like common sense and something probably that should have been brought up years ago. Like, why don't you think they came up, or we as an industry came up with this approach before? Is it all just learning more and it's trial and error? Like, how should we interpret that? I know.
It's we need to come together, get a strategy, and implement the plan, the strategy. That's it. And I would get a big whiteboard out and say, okay, first thing, who are the different PACs out there that we could align with? Get that out,
Yeah.
get that kind of figured out, and then put together a marketing campaign and target that. And you're right, we all need to come together and be hyper focused on one thing. I mean, there's so many things we want. We want banking, we want rescheduling. Look, just open the door. Get the door open. I don't know, just pick one thing and drive that thing hard. And then it's the same thing in cannabis, CBD. Door got opened a little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
door opened a little bit. Then boom, it's next thing you know, we have recreational. Same thing. Get in, get that door opened up, and once that door is open, now that's the hardest thing, is getting the momentum going. Got that momentum going, now we can start dealing with all the other
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, I hear you. So is that first step rescheduling, would you say?
Man, look, that would be great. I'll take debanking. I've been debanked, I
Yeah.
don't know, 6 or 7 times over the last 8 years. It's a pain in the ass. That alone, I think if debanking were to happen, and since it's coming up and with crypto, that is going to take 1,000-pound weight off the shoulders of cannabis right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
I think capital markets will look at us differently. It'll be a different day for cannabis.
Yeah. Well, having conversations like this with you, it's leaves me feeling optimistic somewhat about the
It's going to
industry.
get there. There's just too much money in cannabis not to make this legal at some point federally.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, whether it's this term or the next term, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. I get comments and people say you sound pretty optimistic right now, and people are just like,
Oh.
nothing is going to happen. And I don't blame them, for saying stuff like that, because nothing has happened up until this point. But based on the, we've had you on in the past, you still feel confident though that we're going to see change with this current administration?
Yeah, positive things happen. Positive thoughts happen. Positive
Yeah,
things
good
happen,
point.
positive people. Look, if you go negative, all you're going to do is attract more negative.
Yeah.
Go positive with an open heart, an open mind, and a smile on your face, and sit down and have the serious conversations that need to happen, and it will happen. There's just too much money for it not to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to call the differentiation between what you just said, Shad, because there's a lot of people that watch our show, and there's a lot of people that we engage with who are short-term investors and or invested in the industry. They want change and need change very quickly, if I was an operator in this space, whether it's advanced nutrients, an MSO, or one other piece of the value chain, there's never been a better time in the industry as far as growth, mobility, capital. Well, I don't know about capital, but the industry is growing immensely. The conversation is growing immensely. Change is going to happen. But Mike is right. Whether it's this term, whether it's next term, ultimately we're on a collision course with legalization and or descheduling of cannabis. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Always love having conversations with you. Let's keep in touch. And, I think I like the idea of just talking about some of the science and background that you have. And like, most importantly, like I said, if there's any people that want to reach out to you to learn more, if they're a grower for specific companies, what's the best way to reach out to you, Mike?
Just info at advancednutrients.com is the best way to get in there. We watch that every single day, and we answer.
Okay.
We will respond.
Last thing before I let you go, how's things in LA? They better?
A lot better. We got rain. We got a pretty good rain for 2 days. And I was like, hey, thank you. And it looks like the fires are all out under control. Of course, the devastation. There's a team member who lost their home here, and she says, "Yeah, I applied. Literally, I was talking to her yesterday. She goes, I applied for an apartment. There was 120 applications. We were number 11.
So where are people going?
Las Vegas. A lot of people are going to Vegas.
Yeah, I did see that.
Next door. Yeah.
Well, even outside of that storm, when I see, like, isn't that the fastest growing city in the U.S. right now? Las Vegas?
Vegas is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Vegas and Austin.
They say by 2030 they're going to run out of real estate for homes in Vegas. So,
yeah. I even I was talking to, we had that one server at the one restaurant we were at, Anthony, who had a background in acting, but a lot of movie production companies are moving out that way too. So it seems to be the new spot, that's for sure. But
there's no income tax.
Yeah, no income tax.
Same as in Florida.
California taxation is brutal.
Yeah.
Both on cannabis and just in general.
Yeah. Well, listen, good seeing you. And let's continue this conversation going. We get any news from Washington, then we're going to make sure we have you on the podcast right away. But again, I always appreciate talking with you and educating us more on whether your industry is today, but where it's going tomorrow. And here's the great thing, too, having a positive outlook on life in general, right?
All right, Chad. All right, Anthony. Great being on the show.
Mike.
Take care.
Appreciate it. All right, let's keep in touch.
Take care.
Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. What'd you all think? Is there any information that we're missing? Is there anything you want us to cover? As these industries heat up, we're getting access to more and more big hosts. So let us know the questions that you want us to ask for you. As usual, smash that like button. We want this to go viral. Click on that bell for all notifications for the latest interviews that we're doing. And as usual, let's build this community. Subscribe to our channel because we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.